My nose is runny and I will probably sneeze 3 times during this. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sick. I've been sick. I continue to be sick. The only time I go to the doctor is when I want the doctor to tell me I'm being a hypochondriac. Doesn't work out that way. I need to let myself be sick so that I can quit being sick. Basically, I keep fighting it and it's not working. Anyway, so Deb asked for some culinary, some medical, and some off-grid tips. I plan on doing a bunch of cooking things once we're moved and I have a kitchen to cook in. Okay, I will actually do step-by-steps on easy cooking things. Medical, you gotta ask specific questions. It's too big of a category. Off-grid tips, again, too big of a category. Ask the specific question you need answered, and if I have the information in my head, I'll give it to you, and I might even research it before I answer. Going back over this, things that haven't been addressed yet. Story about the blue crocheted blanket. Story about the job in the Caymans. Bone marrow and group health. Those are the ones I haven't touched on yet. I'm going to pass on that. Different types of arthritis. There's osteoarthritis, there's rheumatoid arthritis, there's psoriatic arthritis. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 11-ish, somewhere in there. My childhood was so messed up that after Dr. Reedy said it's arthritis, my mother went to the pharmacy and bought me the largest bottle of industrial strength aspirin. I think they were 1,000 milligrams a pill. They were this big and that wide, and I mean bigger than my thumb, and not coated. They were dry, powdery. And she handed me this bottle and said, take them whenever you want. And I went home and I used to have a little, it was for fingernails and toenails drill thing. I don't know if anybody remembers those things. They're probably still around. And I ground it up. I ground up aspirin pill after aspirin pill. I very rarely took them because I couldn't swallow them. So I ground them up and I'd put a little bit of the aspirin into some honey and take it that way. There was a book called Katie Woodlawn, and in Katie Woodlawn, her mother used a mortar and pestle to grind up some aspirin and give it to her in honey, which is where I got the idea. Never really did that much for me. Never really helped. Never really did anything. When David was a kid, he was having skin rashes, and I get scaly patches. You can't see it right now because it's mostly better. Can you see the scalies? No, you can't see them. I get scales. It's a type of eczema-like thing. It can cover like this much and be really gross and disgusting if it's not controlled. And I went to a doctor, and the one doctor was like, well, Tide is your #1 allergen. And if you have rheumatoid arthritis, then chances are you're allergic to potatoes and tomatoes and eggplants and peppers and all of that. And it's the skin and the seeds, not the actual flesh, and blah, 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 blah. And he pointed out that some people with rheumatoid arthritis have really bad problems with psoriasis and psoriatic issues, skin issues. So a few years back, they started breaking rheumatoid arthritis into rheumatoid arthritis and psoriatic arthritis. I'm saying the word wrong. I know I'm saying the word wrong, but I can't correct it right now because that's how the brain works. Anyway, I have that type of arthritis more than I have rheumatoid arthritis. When you have arthritis, even osteoarthritis, 99% of the time there is a trigger in your life. If you can find the trigger, you won't get rid of the arthritis, but you'll make it better for a while. Because one trigger episode lasts anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks, sometimes 3 months. If you're just constantly re-triggering yourself, you never get better, and it only gets worse and worse and worse. Right now, my hands are so sore. This knuckle is just extreme. I don't know if anybody remembers or was watching when I went to do this the other day. I don't have the grip strength to open a thing of lipstick. There we go. Okay? That's how weak my hands are right now. Which is incredibly annoying because I have this souped up hardcore immune system that's supposed to fight everything that attacks me. It attacks my joints. And when I get sick, it's not supposed to hurt the arthritis because it's supposed to go attack other things, but it's attacking everything. So that's the thoughts on arthritis. What else? I don't know what else. We're at 5 minutes. What do you want to hear about? So I'm trying to make little... they're here. I'm trying to make sea glass beads. So I took a translucent clay and added a little bit of color. And these are what I got, which are not the color that they're showing as. I've got to figure out how to change that filter. These are not teal. They're showing up as teal because this thing is adding yellow to stuff. This is a dark blue. There's no green to that. And this is the slightly lighter. See how it's got some translucency to it? They look better on camera than they actually look in person. Anyway, I had the thought to make sea glass beads. These ones are round, but the finished product would have had cut edges that were mellowed out and everything. I don't like the way it looked, so now I have to regroup. Most of the tutorials for making sea glass beads use alcohol inks into the clear clay, or the translucent clay, and I don't have any, so I was using little bits of clay trying to color, and the color's obviously too solid. Anyway, what else? I have a headache. I got nothing. What should I talk about, dear? He says I should talk about anti-vaxxers. That's quite the rant. Okay. Anybody on social media knows about anti-vaxxers. They know about herd immunities. Even if you got all your immunizations as a kid, it's 93% effective, which means 7% of the population isn't covered. People my age, people from about, if I remember my math right, it's 64 to 45-ish, the X-Gen. They were recommending a single vaccine instead of a double vaccine, and we may not be covered. People with health problems aren't covered. People who got their vaccines as an adult might not be covered. A lot of vaccines only last for 2 to 7 years, the same way tetanus only lasts 2 to 7 years. They tell you to get it redone every 7 years, but your coverage is only guaranteed for 2. A lot more of the population is at risk than mainstream media will present it as, because they don't want to panic. They'll say, most people are covered. But the reality is about 50% of the population's covered at any given time from any given disease that there's a vaccine for. When there's an outbreak like this current measles outbreak here in the Northwest, they're tracking 34 cases. That means 34 people were sick enough to go to the hospital to get the tests. That means there's probably 340 to 3,400 actual cases, because a mild case of the measles isn't anything to go to the doctor about. A mild case of the measles is a migraine, a sore throat. You might think you have pink eye, a cough, and maybe some hives that last for 3 to 6 weeks. A bad case is scary. It's really scary. I had whooping cough as a kid. I was 6th grade. I don't remember what age that is. Anyway, I had a cough, and I was sick, and I had a cough and I was sick, and my mom accused me of being lazy and trying to get out of doing chores, and I had a cough. I didn't have anything else, a cough and the feeling of being sick. You can't qualify the feeling of being sick if there isn't something to go with it. If you don't have the fever and the sweats, and you can't tell the person's sick. 6 months. I remember I got sick right before Halloween, and I remember it was Easter. Slipped and fell and cracked my elbow. Mom took me to the doctor for the x-ray. I had a coughing fit, and everybody in the ER came to a complete stop and turned and looked. And my mom goes, "Oh, that's just her. She's just trying for attention." And we were fairly well known because I had a lot of broken bones as a child, because there are portions of my childhood that really fucking sucked. The doctor walks over, starts looking, starts listening, starts looking. Says, "I'm going to order a few tests." And my mom goes, "We're just here for the elbow." And the doctor says, "County will pay for it." I remember this. And I remember having another coughing fit, and I couldn't stop. And I remember my mother hitting me upside the head saying, "Would you knock that off?" And the nurse bringing me this big, huge, contraption-y moist air thingy, which, a nebulizer. I didn't know what it was at the time. And my mother made a comment, "If you have asthma, I'm going to be mad." And I remember just working on not coughing, because I'd spent the last 6 months not coughing around her. And the doctor coming back and saying, "I want her to take these meds, and, we'll follow up on this." And I remember my mother going home and calling people. Cherise was such a hypochondriac at the doctor's office. She had them all worried about that stupid cough of hers. It's probably just asthma. I think she's allergic to the dog, blah, blah, blah. I could imitate her. It would not be flattering, and you would think I was exaggerating. She called probably 15 people in the next day. And I remember going to school the next day, and one of the teachers teasing me about the cough. Okay? And a week later, my mom getting called by the doctor's office, being told to bring me in for chest x-rays. And I had whooping cough with pneumonia, and I'd been walking around with pneumonia for 6 months. That whole school year. Do I sound bitter? Yeah. I remember in 2nd grade transferring schools, and the schools saying, "And we need your immunization records," to my mom, and my mom going, "Oh dear, I forgot those. I'll bring them in tomorrow." And Tanya and I getting enrolled. And I remember my mom that night sitting down with 2 immunization books filling in information. Now, my mom wasn't an anti-vaxxer. She didn't believe some conspiracy theory, not that I ever heard. My parents just didn't bother. And there's a large number of people out there whose parents just didn't bother. My sister had mumps. I remember her neck got like this big, and it looked like she had lemons because they were yellow. And it looked like giant zits you could pop, but there was no skin surface, like giant cysts. But it was mumps. When we were at Group Health in Olympia, and they were in the process of killing my bone marrow, I had every gland in my body swell up. And my throat got, I looked like, it's not Kardashians, whatever, from Star Trek. Ow, that's still sore. And the one PA walked in and she said, "Well, if I didn't know better, I'd say you had the mumps." I was like, "Well, why do you say I don't?" And she's like, "Well, because you're an adult and you've been vaccinated." I was like, "Can we get a test on that?" It wasn't mumps. It was an allergic reaction to some medication I was on. People who don't vaccinate their kids because they think there's some grand conspiracy. People who don't vaccinate their kids because they think they know more than the CDC. And people who don't vaccinate their kids because they can't be bothered shouldn't have kids. That should be a child abuse capable level that loses your children. That's my opinion. Or we as a society need to start admitting that we believe in Darwinism and letting them self-select out. I don't know what to do with that. We've got a measles outbreak here locally, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that somebody didn't vaccinate, and people who are at risk are getting sick. Anyway, it's been 15 minutes. I babbled. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.